Welcome back to another video on some polynomials. So if you are looking at this one where we are going to factor trinomials, then I'm assuming you've already learned how to add and subtract them as well as multiply them. So in this video, we're going to factor trinomials, specifically when a is equal to 1 or when the leading coefficient is equal to 1. There are other trinomials where a does not equal 1 and they're a little bit more complicated, and we'll save that for another video. Now, there are many different types of ways of factoring trinomials, but I'm going to show you a shortcut that hopefully simplifies down the process and so that you can factor a lot quicker than some of the other methods you'll see out there. Let's jump right into it. So when I go ahead and factor these trinomials, again, we have a leading coefficient of 1 for all of these, so I go ahead and write two factors down for this. So 1 and 1 will multiply to get to 1, and then I look at the constant at the end, which is 12, and I look at two factors for 12 that will multiply to get 12, but also add to get this 7 in the middle. Now, there's 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm going to choose 3 and 4, and they're both going to be positive numbers here. And if you pair this is really 1x times 3, and that's going to be 3x. This is really 1x times 4, and that's going to be 4x. So 3x plus 4x does get you 7x, right? And so believe it or not, that is the hardest part of this process. So you go ahead and you write your two binomials that you were hoping to factor into. The 1 really stood for 1x and the 1 stood for 1x. So you just slide those into the first spots in the binomials. And then you go ahead and see what was paired together, right? So if we take a look at the first pairing, which was this 1 and 3, that's going to be this pairing on the outside here. That's going to be this 1x, and then we're going to put a positive 3. So that's the outers, so the outsides. Following that, we had a second pairing of 1x and 4. So we have the 1x over here, and we're going to pair with the 4. So we're going to go ahead and put a positive 4 here. If you go ahead and look at this, we actually now have a factored trinomial into two binomials. That's all you got to do for this method. And if you'd like to go ahead and double check this, just FOIL it out or distribute or multiply these two binomials, and you will get the trinomial that we started with. Okay. For number 2, let's go ahead. We have this 1y squared. So I'm going to write 1y and 1y, but again, I'm going to leave off the y's here. And then for the 15 here, I know there's 1 and 15, and there's also 3 and 5. Now, I'm going to go with 3 and 5 because they add to get to 8. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a positive 5 and a positive 3. If we line this up, that's going to be the 5y and the 3y, which combines to make 8y. If we go ahead and write our two binomials out, we're going to get a y and a y at the beginning of each of these. And if we go ahead and pair up this 1 and 5 together, that's going to be this 1y, and I'm going to go ahead and put a plus 5 over on this outside. And then for this 1 and 3, well, we already got the 1 over here, so where do we put the 3? That's going to be plus 3. There's also no other spots to put it, so that's got to be there. So this would be our factored expression. Taking a look at number 3, let's go ahead and put a 1 in front, so that's going to be 1x and 1x. And now for this 20, what I do think is 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. I'm thinking of 4 and 5 just because I see the 9, but now be very, very careful because this is a negative 9. This has actually got to be a negative 4 and a negative 5. And that doesn't affect the 20 because a negative times a negative is still a positive. But if you multiply the 1x times negative 4x, this will be negative 5x. Those combine to get to negative 9x. So that's how you deal with these types. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open up two binomials here. I know this is going to be 1x and 1x. Then over here, I know this is going to be 1 and negative 4. So here's the 1, and I'm going to put the minus 4 over in this location. And then we have this 1 and negative 5. So here's the 1, and I'm going to go ahead and put the negative 5 in the last spot anyway. So this would be the factored trinomial. For number 4, we have 1y squared. So I'm going to put 1 and 1. And for this 36, I'm thinking there's 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, and then 4 and 9. And so I'm going to go with 12 and 3 for my factors, and I'm going to make them both negative because I see that there's a negative b term or negative middle term here. So this will make negative 12y and negative 3y, which combines to make negative 15y. If we go ahead and open these up, we're going to get this y in here and y over here. Pairing up this 1, that's going to be y with the minus 12, so that's going to be paired out on this side. And then we're going to go ahead and put the minus 3 in this last location right here, so that we can see that these pair up as negative 3y when you multiply it out. Okay. For number 5, let's go ahead and see what we have let's put a 1 here just so we can see it. This is a 1 and a 1. And then for this negative 21, be careful here. There's 1 and 21, then 3 and 7. I'm going to use 7 and 3, but keep in mind that it's a negative 21, so one of these has to be negative. Now, which one? Well, if you see this is a positive 4, then you must know that this 3 in this case has to be the negative, just because we want to get positive 4, not negative 4. So let's keep the 7 positive and the 3 negative. This will get positive 7x and minus 3x, which makes the 4x. I'm going to go ahead and open up these binomials here. And so we're going to get x and x. And then we're going to put the plus 7 on the outside, and we're going to put the minus 3 on the inside. So we can see that these paired just over here, and then these also paired. For number 6, we have a 1x squared, so let's put a 1 and a 1. And then for this negative 44, let's go with 1 and 44, 2 and 22, 4 and 11. So we have 4 and 11, but I'm going to make the 4 negative because it's a negative 44. And we want a positive 7x, so I'm keeping the 11 to be a little bit greater absolute value than a negative 4. So those will pair and those will pair nicely. And so we can go ahead and open these up. I'm going to go ahead and put an x and an x to make the x squared. Then I'll put the minus 4 on the outside and the positive 11 on the inside. So this is where you're getting your negative 4x and positive 11x that match to get positive 7x when you combine them. For number 7, let's take a look. We have a 1y squared, so put a 1 and a 1. And then looking at this negative 14, we need a positive and a negative. I'm thinking 7 and 2, and I'm going to make the 7 negative just because we want to combine to get a negative 5y, not a positive 5y. So that'll be negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. And so I'm going to open up the binomials just like this. I'll put y and y. Nice and easy, and then we'll put this minus 7 on the outside and then plus 2 on the inside. So here's the minus 7y plus 2y that gets you the negative 5y. For number 8, looks like we have 1x squared in the beginning, and then for this negative 40, we have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. So I'm going to put a 1 and a 1 to begin here. And it's a negative 40, so I'm going to go with 8 and 5, but I'm going to make the 8 negative because we're trying to get to this negative 3 in the middle. So we want a negative value. So that's negative 8x plus 5x is negative 3x. If we go ahead and write our binomials, we can go ahead and write those parentheses, and let's put x and x. And we'll put a minus 8 out here and a plus 5 in here. So here's the negative 8x plus 5x to get you the negative 3x. Let's try some more. For number 9, we have this 1x squared in the beginning, so it's going to be 1 and 1. And then if we take a look at this 48, think about all the factors of 48 that we have. I'm going to write them out on the side just so it's helpful for some of these bigger numbers. So I know there's 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, there's 4 and 12, and then there's also going to be a 6 and 8. And so out of all of these, I'm going to go with 3 and 16, just because I know they add to get to the 19. So that's going to be 3x and 16x. And so that's the hard work, all right? The rest of it's easy, relatively. So we can put this x and x, and then we can go ahead and put this plus 3 on the outside and plus 16 on the inside. Cool, moving on. For number 10, we have this 1x squared, so 1 and 1. And for this negative 52, again, we're looking for two numbers that one's positive and one's negative. And so if we're looking at this negative 52, I'm thinking, what are some factors? Well, there's 1 and 52, there's 2 and 26, and there's 4 and 13. Again, if you could do this in your head, great. I'm just writing this out just so you can see it. But I like definitely doing them in my head as well, but hopefully this helps you see the factors if you need a little bit of help with that. So because we're subtracting, we need to find two numbers that are 9 apart from each other, because you can see that we do have negative 9. And for that reason, I'm going to go with 13 and 4 and make the 13 negative. So that would be negative 13x plus 4x, which gets us the negative 9x. I'm going to go ahead and open those up. I'm going to put x and x. Those always go in the first slots. Then I'll put the minus 13 on the outside and the plus 4 on the inside. Okay. Moving on to number 11. For number 11, we have 1y squared in the beginning, so put a 1. We know it's 1 and 1. And then for this positive 72, keep in mind that we need two negatives because we have a negative 22. I'm going to go ahead and write the factors out. I think I know which ones I want to use, but 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24, there's 4 times 18, there's 6 times 12, and there's 8 times 9. So there's a lot of factors of 72, but I'm going to go with this 4 and 18 here, right? So I'm going to go with -4, a -4, and a -18. So that would be -4y, -18y. That would combine to make -22y. So let's go ahead and set this up. And so we'll go ahead and put y and y. And we can put a -4 on the outers and then a -18 on the inners. Now it's factored. For number 12, let's go ahead and see there's a 1 here. So it's 1 and 1. And then for this 36, what am I thinking here? For 36, all our factors are going to be 1 and 36. 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and then 6 times 6. Now, they have to have 2 negative factors here because we have to get this -5y in the middle. That being said, we need 2 numbers that add to get to -5. Now notice here that these don't add to get 5, these don't add to get 5, none of these are going to add to get 5. So in this case, what you're going to notice here is that this one's actually not factorable, right? So for this number 12, this one is not factorable. And that's going to happen sometimes. And then later on in some future videos, we'll go over how to deal with these ones that are not factorable, because you can use different methods to deal with these, like the quadratic formula. Okay, so for number 12, if you were a little bit stumped on that one, totally get it. It's not factorable. You wouldn't be able to factor it nicely. Okay. Let's move on to number 13. For number 13, I'm going to go ahead and put this 1 in the beginning, just like every other problem, and put 1 and 1. And then for this positive 25, we're looking for 2 positive numbers because it's a positive 10 here. And while there is 1 and 25, I think I'm not going to write out all of the lists here. It's not too long, but I think 5 and 5 make 25, and then 5 plus 5 makes 10. So this one's actually not too bad. Go ahead and open those up and put X's in the first location, and then let's go ahead and put 5s in the other locations. So this is actually called a perfect square trinomial. So this one's a little bit special. We'll talk about more of that in another video, but you can go ahead and rewrite this as x plus 5 squared. So that's kind of an interesting one that we'll talk about more later. For number 14, we have 1x squared, so put a 1 and a 1. Then looking for factors of 63, but we need 2 negative numbers because of this -24. So let's see, we have 63, I'm gonna write them out. 1 and 63, 3 times 21, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 times 9. All right, those are all the factors. They have to both be negative, so they're gonna add. So I'm gonna go with this 3 and 21 because they add to get to 24. I'm just going to make them both negative, so -3 and -21. So this will be -3x, -21x, and so we go ahead and set these up. Again, that's the hardest part, so if you get those down, the rest of this is pretty straightforward. That's going to be a -3 and a -21, and there you go, it's factored. For number 15, let's see, we have 1y squared in the beginning, so put 1 and 1. And then we have this positive 33. Okay, so let's think about factors of 33. And I'm writing this out just so you can see this one more clearly because I see what's going to happen here. We have 1 and 33 and 3 and 11. And both numbers that we're using have to be negative because of this -8y and because 33 is positive. So we need 2 numbers that add to get to 8. But the problem is that these add to get to 34 and these add to get to 14. So neither of those add to get to 8 or -8. So just like number 12, we would say that this one is not factorable. Okay, so not factorable. Can't factor this one. So last one, number 16, we have 1y squared. So I'm gonna put a 1 and a 1. And then for this -96, 96 has a lot of factors. Let's go ahead and write these out just in case it helps. So 1 and 96. And if you can't come up with these factors quickly, go ahead and just make a factor tree so that it'll help you out with that. 3 and 32, 4 times 24, 6 times 16, 8 times 12, 9, 10, I think that's it. So these are all the factors for 96, I believe. Now, in determining which one we are going to go with here, notice that we have a negative 96, but we have also a negative 20. So we need two numbers that are going to be 20 away from each other. We're going to be subtracting instead of adding because of the negative 96. So one's positive, one's negative. So I think we're actually going to go with this 4 and 24 since they are 20 apart from each other. And we want which one to be more negative? Well, actually to be negative. So let's do negative 24 and positive 4. Just because if you multiply this out, this would be negative 24 plus 4, which is negative 20. And that's what we're looking for. So if we open up our binomials just like this, we're going to get our y and our y. And then we're going to put a minus 24 and our plus 4. And this would be the factored form for this trinomial. So hopefully, even if you found this strategy a little bit confusing in the beginning, it got a little better if you just stayed with me to the end and practiced. This method is very, very quick compared to a lot of ones out there. If you like it, give it a go. I have many more practice problems on my channel, and I will hopefully do some more videos just going through some practice problems to help you feel better as well. So thanks for sticking to the end, and I hope you found this video helpful. And as always, keep up the great work that you're already doing, and I'll see you in the next one.